Hello and welcome to episode 6 of The Robin's Nest, a very special edition during the coronavirus pandemic as we are coming to you live from our respective homes. We have a very special podcast today. It's slightly different and it involves two very special guests. They are going to be battling it out to be champions of the best Bristol City XI since the year 2000. So let me introduce you to our contestants who are playing for glory today. And as if by magic, Jerry and Stanley will appear. Hello and welcome.
Thanks for having me, Downsy.
Very good. All right. So let's introduce ourselves a little bit. So first of all, Jerry, tell us a little bit about you, because obviously you are known to the club. You are our SLO, our supporter liaison officer, but you have been a fan of the club for a very long time.
Yeah, I've been supporting City since the mid-70s and travelled all over the country to watch them play. Even had the pleasure to go to Italy to watch them play in the Anglo-Italian Cup back in the early 90s, which was a great experience. Yeah, we're lucky to have such a good club, and it's great to be a fan. And I love being the SLO. Interaction with the fans over the last few weeks has been really important, and it's great to keep in touch with everyone.
How is everybody coping in these sort of unprecedented times? Because it obviously has an effect on you and your role with the club.
Yeah, it's really difficult, to be honest. I mean, I've been helping support services taking calls that the Bristol City supporters ringing up through to the club, and I think some people, especially the older ones, just want to talk. I mean, I was chatting to an old gentleman the other day, and he was telling me about watching Stanley Matthews play for Blackpool against City in the FA Cup in the late 1950s, and he was trying to come out with some story apparently that a goose ran on the pitch, and the Blackpool goalkeeper had to go and dive and catch this goose and take it off. I have no idea if that's true or not, but I mean, it's brilliant that you can have a little chat with some guy to help fill his day and just talk about City, because at the end of the day, that's what we all like doing.
Absolutely. How confident are you today, Jerry, that your 11 is going to beat Stanley's?
I don't know. That's a good question, because it's very difficult with the criteria having to have academy players in, and obviously a current squad and a player that's only played on loan. So I've thought about it a lot, but it's a difficult one. I mean, I'd love to see this team play, to be honest.
We'll go through those rules on the way in just a second. Let's meet your co-competitor. This is Stanley Hughes. Stanley, tell us a little bit about you and how long you've been supporting City.
Well, first of all, it's nice to hear Jerry mention Stanley Matthews. That's who I'm named after. I've been supporting City, I guess, since I was born. Really, early memories are probably the final at the old Wembley against Stoke, and being quite perplexed by everyone's misery on that day, not quite understanding why everyone was so upset and angry. And then sort of, the more you grow, the older you get, you start to realize, okay, I understand now. I understand why people, boot inanimate objects. Just been watching City more and more. Really started to go home and away. I mean, not quite as many as Jerry. I get it. He's done a fair amount in a row. I'm not sure I'll quite get there one day, but yeah. But born and raised BS3, so Bristol City's always been a decent chunk of my life, I guess.
Very good. Okay, let's talk about the rules of engagement then in this particular game. So each contestant is going to take it in turn to pick a player to join their starting 11. You can pick any formation. There's no set template, but you cannot have the same player in either of your teams, okay? So they must be completely different. To decide who goes first, we'll do a tiebreaker question. Whoever's closest gets to go first. And then it's the ABBA format. So it's fair. Players don't have to be selected in any kind of formation order. Any positions can be picked at any time. The starting 11 must have at least 2 academy graduates, a player to have only represented the club on loan, and 1 member of the current squad, although they could be out on loan. So we'll get started with that tiebreaker question. So don't shout these out. Write them down, please. What is the average attendance at Ashton Gate so far this season? What is the average attendance at Ashton Gate so far this season? So this is the big one to see who gets to choose if they want to go first or second. So have a little write down of that and let me know when you're both ready. This is where I have to do the math to see who is actually the closest. Right, you guys ready?
Yeah, I've written down my answer.
And me.
Okay, right. Let's get Jerry. Give us your answer first.
21,255.
21,255. Okay, Stanley.
No chance. Miles off. All right, I'm going 20,653.
20,653. I can reveal that only being about 400 out, it's Jerry. The actual number was 21,809. So well done, Jerry. Do you want to go first or second?
No, based on the criteria of the rules, I'll definitely go first.
Okie dokie. All right. So we are off then. So, Jerry, let's have your first member, please.
I've definitely got to go for the lone player, and I go for Tammy.
Okie dokie. Tell us why and what it is about Tammy that's attracted you for this fantastic 11.
Well, the thing with Tammy is, and I know the Rovers fans used to have a nickname for him and call him Tap It In Tammy, but every good side needs someone in the box who just has the knack of being at the right place in the right time. And I can't think how many goals Tammy scored for us from outside the box. I'm struggling to think of any, to be honest, off the top of my head. We've got players that can score from outside the box. You know, the midfield can shoot and score a few goals. But one thing over the last 20 years, with the exception of Tony Thorpe, I don't think we've had anyone like Tammy that has just had the knack of being the poach, the fox in the box, someone in the 6-yard box who just is always in the right place at the right time.
26 goals in 48 appearances across all competitions. It's a good pick. What do you reckon to Tammy, Stanley?
Interesting. It surprised me. Took me by surprise, I must say.
He became the first player to win City's Player of the Year, Young Player of the Year, and Top Goal Scorer awards in the same season. Only Matthew Hill and Cole Skuse have previously claimed the Player of the Year and the Young Player of the Year awards in the same season, but no one had managed all three main honours. So I think Tammy is a damn good pick for Jerry to go first. So Stanley, the next player, please, you're first.
Can't believe he wasn't picked first. I think if he's watching now, he'll be furious. My first pick is Lewis Carey.
Okay, not that we really need a reason why you're going to pick Lewis Carey, but take us through your thoughts, Stanley.
Well, 646 appearances. I mean, that's probably the first thought that comes to mind. Absolute legend. Someone that can grab the game or the teammate, in Bradley Orr's case, by the scruff of the neck and drag people forward, really. Just a legend, and can get goals, scores the occasional goal. And I've just got memories of him just throwing any part of his body in the way of the ball in front of flailing boots, in front of flailing elbows. He would do it all. And yeah, I think he'd inspire my team. And although it's early and it's my first pick, he'd probably have the captain's armband as well.
Okay, obviously came through the youth assessment at the club, so qualifies as your academy graduate as well. Made his debut at York City in October 1995. You must have some lovely memories of Lewis, then, Jerry.
Yeah, I do. I mean, going back to the game that we're playing here, there's no room for sentiment. I don't think, to be honest. I think I mean, I love Lewis, of course I do. Everyone loves Lewis, but yeah, I mean, the fact that he's like as everyone sings, he's one of our own is really important, and you don't play that many games through luck or through sentiment. So I think he warrants his position up there as one of the great City players of all time. Longevity is amazing. I mean, I don't think personally I can't. It's a dog's trapped in hell of anyone getting anywhere close to that, to be honest, in my lifetime. So yeah, I like Lewis. I got some great memories of Lewis. I mean, he was a City fan as well, and his parents used to come with us to all the away games. It's proper Bristol City family, the whole family. Dundree's finest.
What a title, Dundree's finest. I like it. Most recently, of course, Lewis has been working for Southampton's academy setup as well. So in the ABBA format, we stay with Stanley. Stanley, go again.
Massive this, and for reasons on and off the pitch, my second pick is Scott Murray.
The legend that is Scott. You know, he's about 200 or 300 yards that way at the moment. Unfortunately, he's moved quite close to me, so we can see each other across the balconies here in Portishead. Tell us why you've chosen our Scotty.
Well, it's quite rare that you get the chance to be both tactical and thrifty. So I thought, if I want to save money on the kit washing team, I could have Scott, in my starting lineup. But obviously, he was an amazing player and scored a ridiculous number of goals for a winger. It was like clockwork, wasn't it? He'd get the ball, cut inside, and roll it in the bottom corner. And he just did it time and time again. And he's a character. I think the fans love him. He's someone who can sort of whip the crowd up, even if it's Cardiff fans that then throw coins at him. And I think, he's a no-brainer in my team.
Yeah, definitely a club legend. Jerry, as far as Scott is concerned, obviously you work very closely with him now, being a club ambassador, you being the SLO. He's still the character, isn't he?
He has just been absolutely amazing since I started doing the job. He's just a complete person. I mean, he obviously would have been in my starting 11 if you'd not stolen him, Stanley. But yeah, I mean, the guy is he's just a real person. You know what I mean? As a fan of all the years watching him play, to actually be able to work alongside him is just incredible. I sometimes have to pinch myself. He is such a genuine person. He is, the old saying, it says what it is on the tin, could not be more apt than Scotty. He'll talk to anyone. He'll do anything for anyone. I mean, he is just a legend, an absolute legend. And I'll bring him up and get some money off him later.
How did you feel, Jerry, when he went over to Reading for that little spell?
Again, you have to try things, don't you? At the end of the day, you've got to experience different things. I mean, I think it probably made him stronger, to be honest, because I think once he went somewhere else, I think he realised that he was a Bristol City person, and I think Lewis going to Coventry was probably the same. I think I don't knock them for doing it. Of course, you're disappointed when your best players leave. You want all your best players, you want your favourites to stay, but they have to go out and try something else. If it doesn't work, then in their cases they came back. Other players haven't. I'm sure there are other players that regret leaving and potentially wish they hadn't because it hasn't worked out. But how do we know what might have happened when both of those two players moved on? It could have led to other greater things,
And Stanley, do you have a favourite Scott Murray moment?
Oh, it's tough. I mean, the immediate one that springs to mind, isn't it, is the Cardiff goal. This is quite a random moment. It was basically my brother. My brother used to be the assistant personal trainer for the first team back in the day, and on my 7th birthday, he arranged for me to come and meet the players, to go into the change room with Danny Wilson and meet all the players. And the night before, a different brother had come back from university and was shaving his head. And as a 7-year-old, I thought this was amazing. This was so cool. So I got him to shave my head with him. And then the next day on my birthday, I go into the change room and I meet, go into the change room, and my brother, the personal trainer, says, "Oh, it's Danny Wilson." "Oh, Danny Wilson, hey, nice to meet you." "Brian Tiernan, hey, nice to meet you." So, Lewis Kay, all these legends that, I had posters on my walls, came over and shook my hand. And each time my brother explained, "Oh, this is my little brother, Stan." And then Scott Murray came over and didn't realise that I was his brother. Scott Murray was close to tears because he thought that this was like my last wish as a young kid to come and meet the Bristol City team.
Nice.
I told him about this story the other day, and we were howling with laughter, me and Scotty. We thought it was hilarious. But yeah, great guy, and he always cares about the fans, always cares about people, always up for a laugh. Yeah, a great guy.
426 appearances and 91 goals, the joint 10th in the all-time record. Scott Murray, well chosen by Stanley in his best 11 since the year 2000. You're listening to The Robin's Nest. Hello, it's Downsy here. Episode 6 sees Jerry and Stanley going head-to-head, choosing their best Bristol City 11. And we are now over to Jerry. Jerry, another pick of a player from you, please.
Okay, I think this is a bit predictable, but I am going to go for Aidan Flynn.
Again,
Uh,
I could probably throw a stone at Aidan Flint's house from here. I won't, because obviously I'd be arrested. But tell us why the big man is in your team.
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, I mean, the fact of all the goals he scored as well, it's got to be relative. I mean, I can't remember a centre half scoring goals like he did in the promotion season. I mean, as a City fan who's been going for years and years and years, I can't believe we actually won that title. Of 60 years without winning a title, I can't tell you what that meant to me. That season was just awesome. Just being at Bradford, what winning 6-0. It's just so many memories of that season. It was just so enjoyable. I cannot think of a game. Oh, I can actually. I'd be lying if I said I can't think of a game I didn't like. I can remember Colchester away when we were losing 3-0 at half time. I didn't enjoy that very much. But I mean, Flint was just awesome, an inspiration. And the Flint says no, no, no song is just being born and brought up in Gloucestershire, where there are a lot of Swindon fans. That song and that comment was just priceless. I would have paid money for him to say that on Sky Sports, what he said after that Swindon game. That was awesome. And I mean, he was just a rock. He wasn't the quickest on the ground, but then you don't get set. If he was quick on the ground with that height, that goal scorer ability, he would never have played for us. So you have to be realistic and say that he wasn't the quickest, but the guy was just amazing. He got the fan base together. He got the players together. I mean, the guy's just amazing. And I mean, one thing that annoys me about sports fans, or when players move on to so-called rivals, it's inevitable. It's like if someone offered a person, if you've got someone that drives a bus for one coach company and another one offers him the same job 5 times as much money, of course he's going to move on. And I don't blame him for moving on. I don't blame him at all. He had to try something else. What I was just saying about a player that potentially might regret having moved, I wouldn't be surprised if deep down Flint he wishes he'd stayed. I don't know. But personally, I think he's just brilliant. And I think he's one player that you just don't get many of them coming along like that very often. He was at the right time, the right price, right club, basically. And I think he's brilliant.
In that 2014-15 season, 15 goals en route to the League One title, the JPT double success, a final day hat-trick against Walsall, and a headed effort at Wembley against Walsall as well. Stanley, I bet you are gutted that Jerry has chosen Aidan.
I definitely wouldn't want to mark him at a corner, that's for sure. Yeah, he's a legend, isn't he? I mean, I've seen a centre back score a Rabona goal for a start, and then I remember him scoring.
Mad.
He scored volleys as well. Scored volleys with his left foot from the edge of the box. It was just. He was. I mean, I've heard this descriptor before, and I think it's apt for Aidan Flint. He is basically a head on a stick, isn't he? Because you could just boot the ball into the box, and you just know that he'll get it. It doesn't matter who's there. It doesn't matter how many people, how big they are. He's going to push you out of the way and score. And he was a character as well, and many memories from that amazing season that I'm sure Jerry enjoys thinking about just as much as I do.
Absolutely.
Very good. He was the division's player of the month in September. That same month, Lee Johnson secured the manager of the month accolade as well. And that was that big. Do you remember the unbeaten run? Was it 75? I think it was since 75 in the second tier. So great memories of that time, Jerry.
Oh, the whole season, it's just incredible. It's as a fan of so long. I mean, winning the JPT or the LDV or the Freight Rover Trophy in its guises at Wembley was great, but to actually win a league title, having watched us in 1990 get promoted, but who at BS7 winning the league and beating us to it, even though we got promoted that season, it was like it was tainted because Rovers won the league. But to actually win the league and stand in the stadium on that game after the Walsall game, that was a ridiculous game, 8-2. To stand there and watch the players come out of the Atio tunnel in pairs and dive on the pitch and and celebrate with the fans, incredibly emotional. I mean, I don't care if I sound like a bit of a wuss, I could easily have cried that day. It was so emotional. I was in such a state. This is honest gospel truth, Downsy. I was in such a state. I couldn't remember where I parked my car when I went out of the stadium after the presentation. It took me an hour to find me where I parked my car. I was walking up and down Raleigh Road, all the roads around the stadium. No, it's not true. I went down Duckmore Road. I took the left turn in the right turn, and I walked up and down. There were people in their gardens gardening, thinking, "What's that bloke doing?" He walked past about 5 minutes ago. And I couldn't find my car. I was in such an emotional state. It was just incredible. And I'm not ashamed to say it. It is undoubtedly. I still can't believe that we had that season. It was brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Well, 246 appearances and 38 goals. Aidan Flint makes it into Jerry's best Bristol City 11 since the year 2000. Jerry, you're up again.
Yeah, I must admit, because of the rules, I'm going to go for a player that I wouldn't have gone for as early in my choice, but I'm going to be struggling to get to homegrown players if Stanley nicks them all. So I am going to go for Joe Bryan. Because
okay, so
I'm going to run out of choices. My choices for academy players. He's got Carey already, so I would have gone for Lewis eventually, but it wouldn't be my first pick. So that's why I'm going to go a little bit out of order and go for Joe, to be honest.
Excellent.
My biggest thing I love
Joe qualifies as your academy player just for the rules. He qualifies for your academy player.
No, he's a great player. I mean, Joe Bryan is a great guy as well. I mean, having the pleasure of having met Joe and spoken to him, he's a top guy. Great guy. And what I love about Joe is his knack of scoring goals in local derbies. He scored against Swindon. He scored against the Rovers. He had his faults, Joe. I think he was, but going forward and I think commitment to the club, loyalty. I think he deserves a place in the team, to be honest.
We just need to clarify, Jerry, with Joe. Are you playing him in midfield or are you playing him in defence?
That's like in playing my team later. I haven't got it. I would put him in midfield. I'd put him on the left midfield, to be honest. Okay. I put him on the midfield definitely to start with. I might push him back at the later stage.
Always that option. He was, of course, an academy product. He joined the club at the age of 8, although we have all seen that picture of him in a Rovers shirt. That was a small mistake that he made early on. But the first goal for City in that Bristol derby, that victory in September 2013, I notice, as I have had a little bit of information that Joe was on your list as well, Stanley. So another gutting moment for you.
Yeah, fuming, to be honest. He was actually pretty high up. He would have been my 4th pick, to be honest. So he was right up there. So I'm a bit annoyed that Jerry's nicked him from me. But like Jerry said, just the knack of scoring goals. I mean, people, will have always questioned maybe his defensive side of the game, but just his ability with both feet in the final third and the amount of moments that came from wonderful bits of individual brilliance, I think can't be understood. I still, one of the goals that sticks out, I always remember the Man United goal or the Rovers goal or goals in the Carabao Cup. But I remember the goal away to Middlesbrough when, to get our first win in the Championship season after the double, and that amazing cutting inside, right foot, just bending it. I remember him telling a story that Joe Bryan was saying that his dad always told him to always pass the ball into the net. You never have to smash the ball. You never have to blast it. Just place it into the net. And the amount of lovely placed efforts into the top corner that we've seen from Joe Bryan. Well, I might have to search out a YouTube compilation after this, maybe.
That game at Middlesbrough actually was played in the most ridiculous humidity. I don't know whether you actually went to the Riverside that day, but it was so hot and humid. It was ridiculous. We came back on the coach through ridiculously torrential rain, thunderstorms, and all sorts. But it was. I don't particularly like Middlesbrough, but we always win at the Riverside, so it's. I quite like my trips up there.
Out of interest, Jerry, what sort of reception, with your SLO's hat on, what sort of reception do you think Joe would have had had he played in the Fulham game, had he been fit?
No, I think he would have had a good reception, to be honest. I think a lot of bravado on social media about players being traitors and going to clubs at the same level. But I mean, he's played in the Premiership, hasn't he? So you can't blame the guy. I mean, these players, Abe Flint and Joe Bryan, and I've got another one on my list that'll probably be controversial in a minute, will get flack from a certain area of the database, of the fan base. But deep down inside, the real player, you know that Joe Bryan gave everything for Bristol City while he played for us, and he was there years and years and years. And I think players like Joe, Bobby Reid, Aidan Flint, I think the fact that some of the fans boo them is actually a backhanded compliment. Because if they didn't actually like them, they wouldn't bother, would they?
Would you have cheered for Joey B on his return, Stanley?
Well, I'll tell you what, I was at the Fulham away game, and there was quite a lot of jeering then, early on, from maybe, I don't know, 10, 15% of the away fans. And within, I don't know, 10, 15 seconds, there was a chant from the City in retaliation to that booing, Joe Bryan being one of our... At the end, he came over and he cut. So I think majority, like Jerry said, there's always going to be a few, well, idiots is probably the word we should use in this podcast, you know, that are going to jeer and boo people like Joe Bryan. But yeah, I'll certainly be clapping him and, you know, being friendly the next time he comes to Ashton Gate.
Very good. And that's your Academy player in. The goals, of course, for Joe. Perhaps we'll go to both of you. And is there a specific favourite Joe Bryan goal? A couple of memorable ones, obviously.
That's a good question, actually. There's three that spring to mind. I would go for the one against Swindon, the 3-0 at home to Swindon. I just think that was an amazing night, absolutely incredible night. And whilst cup games, whilst Liverpool away, Man United at home, they are memorable games that stick in the memory forever. You know, that goal, that Swindon game was so important to us. And you know, I just think, you know, I mean, that was like the second goal, wasn't it? I think because Kieran Agard scored in the first half, and then Joe Bryan's was the second, and then Aaron Wilbraham sort of kicked one in into an open goal to make it 3-0. I mean, that was such an important goal, to be honest, because, you know, it was a massive game, and I just personally would pick that one.
Stanley?
Yeah, the Swindon one would probably up there. Maybe the Middlesbrough goal as well away. But what I like about Joe Bryan's goals is he is the worst celebrator I've ever seen. He never has any idea what to do. I think the Swindon goal and the Rovers goal, he just sort of jogged lightly towards the substitutes and then gave someone a hug. I think Lewis Carey maybe for the Rovers goal. And then the goal, you know, maybe his most iconic goal, maybe, you know, up there for his best ones. What does he do? He absolutely bundles the knee slide and face plants onto the floor. So I think, you know, the goals are very good, but maybe you should spend some time practicing the celebrations, I think.
Joe Bryan and that historic opening goal, of course, against Manchester United in the 2017-18 Carabao Cup quarter-final. Of course, I was at City by then, and a great moment. And gosh, what a night. Very good. Joe Bryan has been selected by Jerry. So then we're going over to Stanley now for another selection.
Right. Well, I got to be honest. I'm amazed. I'm absolutely amazed that I've managed to get my top 3 picks here. I was worried that I'd go first, you know, I only get one, and because I thought they'd be set in stone. So my third pick, and again, I'm going to use the word legend, is Brian Tinnion.
Brian Tinnion. Of course, I had the pleasure of interviewing him quite a few times for our 125th anniversary not so long ago. Absolutely legend of a man, a nice bloke, obviously still involved in the club as well as our loans manager. Why is the Tin Man on your list, please, Stanley?
Well, first of all, we're going sort of, you know, OTT tactical. It's always good to have left footers, a bit of balance in the team. You know, you don't want to have 3 right-footed central midfielders. And Tinnion had an absolute wand for a left foot. I mean, obviously, everyone remembers him for the iconic goal away at Liverpool. I remember talking to him about this, and he said, you know, it's a bit of a shame. He played 551 games, and people remember him almost for one moment on its own, really. But loads of goals, and you know, if anyone has got DVDs of the sort of the mid-noughties highlights or the mid-noughties seasons, you will see just how many goals Brian Tinian had a hand in. If it's set pieces, penalties, free kicks, playing through balls to Scott Murray, or shooting from 30 yards in off the bar. He could do it all, and someone that I think could have easily played at a higher level than League One, with either with or without Bristol City. But a legend, and I'm amazed that I've managed to get him in my team.
Signed in 1993 from Bradford City. He was 12 seasons as a player at Ashton Gate before taking over from Danny Wilson at the helm in 2004, of course. His first goal against Bristol Rovers, as you mentioned, a penalty in front of the open end as well. Jerry, although I think I've cheated you out of another go, just working out the technicals there, we might have to try and sort that out in a second. There's absolutely no doubt that Tin Man had to feature in somebody's 11.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously everyone's going to remember Tinian for the goal against Liverpool, but yeah, no, he. I'll be honest with you. I'm not going to lie. I didn't have him in my first choice 11, which Stanley is obviously surprised at. But so I'm not gutted that you've picked him, man. To be honest, but he was a great player. I mean, he would 100%. If I had to pick a squad of players, if I had to pick 22 player squad for the last 20 years, Tinian would have been. In fact, he is. He's on my list of ones to drop in if you nicked all mine. To be honest, but he's been a great ambassador for the club as well. He's a club legend, but it's just not in my team. Scotty would have been, by the way. Scotty, if you're watching.
Right, Stan, off you go again.
So this is where it's getting a little bit more awkward, really. I had it all planned out in my head, how it's going to go, and now it's sort of a little bit last minute. So I would have picked Brian. Brian would have been my next choice. I'm going to go with Adam Webster.
Webby, tell us more.
Yeah. Well, I think the wince from Jerry tells you that he was going to probably put him in his team. And sorry, Jerry, I'll have to nick him from you. I mean,
Flint and Webster together, mate. Flint and Webster together.
Well, there you go. In your dreams now, isn't it? Look, it's strange, isn't it? Because you get these players sometimes that are only here for a season or a small period of time. Quite often, it's loan players that are clearly just too good for this level. Tammy being one, and other ones that I won't mention in case Jerry nicks them being others. And Webster almost felt like that in a way. I know we bought him from Ipswich, of course, but he was sort of here and gone in a flash, really. This sort of like this dashing, tall, quick, ambidextrous centre back that could do everything was sort of here, and then he was suddenly a dead memory so quickly, despite only being here a season. I think the fee, £20 million, is an outrageous amount for anything, let alone a centre back in the Championship. But he probably warranted it because he was I think by far the best centre back in the Championship last season, and I look forward to him, dancing rings around Jerry's strikers in the game.
It is always gutting when players go on to bigger and better, but a bit like Joe Bryan, you can't blame anyone wanting to play at the top level of football.
No, certainly not. What we got to remember, is footballers don't. Yes, they earn enormous amounts of money, but they've got to maximise their career because if you're lucky, even if you don't have any injuries, you might get 12 seasons, 20 years regular football, and that's only the good ones. So I think we got to sort of take that into account, really. And to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if Brighton quadrupled his wages, let alone doubled or tripled them. And he wasn't a Bristol City fan, and we got a huge fee, And I think he's done all right for Brighton, to be honest. And I think he'll, like we saw him sort of grow throughout the season for us in the Championship, I can easily see him sort of growing at Brighton and becoming a very, very good Premier League centre-back, and maybe moving on to a bigger club and maybe, getting an England call-up one day.
25 appearances for the Seagulls this season in all competitions so far, scoring in 3. But not on your list, Jerry.
Well, he would have been.
He would have been.
Yeah, 100% he would have been. Yeah, I just imagine with Aidan Flint's lack of being able to bring the ball out from the back, with him alongside Aidan Flint at the back, it would have just been amazing. I'm gutted. I might have nicked Joe Bryan, but I'm gutted because basically, I had 4 centre halves put down. I picked one, and he's picked 2 of the other. So I've already got. I'm gonna have to have a little think quickly about another centre half, to be honest. But I'm gutted because I think Webster is amazing. I think he was brilliant player. Actually, credit to himself. And you know, when he signed, I actually know an Ipswich fan, and they kept on saying, and Pompey fans as well were saying the same, that he won't last the season, he'll be injured, and this, that, and the other. But he was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I mean, ridiculous business for the club as well. I mean, like, I totally agree with Stanley. 22 million for a centre half. He's never played in the Premiership is bonkers. Absolute bonkers, and that's where the management. I'm not just saying this as a club employee, but that's where the management got it so right. You have no choice when that sort of money comes in for a centre half as a Championship club to sell. As sad as it is to see players of that quality go, that was just a no-brainer for the club.
Great stuff. Nice to see Adam Webster in the best Bristol City 11 since the year 2000 in Stanley Hughes' team. And we go now to Jerry's sofa. Jerry is our SLO as well as a huge Bristol City fan, just like Stanley. Jerry, who is next in your best Bristol City 11, please?
Well, this is getting to the stage where I've got a couple of players down on my list that I don't think Stanley's going to pick. So I'm not going to pick them yet, but I'll be gutted if he does, because he's so young. There's a couple of players there's 2 players I particularly like, but I don't think he's going to pick. So as I get 2 picks now, don't I? Because he's just had 2.
Yeah.
I am going to pick another academy player, because this is where I was really struggling to get academy players into the team. As I was going to pick Scotty, I will pick Bobby Reid for my second academy player, because the academy players I've got written down, obviously, were Carey, Brian, Reid, and one other. And so I'm going to pick Bobby Reid so that I've got my 2 academy players and my loan player. That way I can then just pick the other players afterwards. I mean, a lot of people think Bobby Reid was a one-season wonder. With all these goals he scored in the one season. But to be fair, Scotty scored a lot of his goals in one season as well. So you'd never describe Scotty as a one-season wonder. But I just think Bobby Reid's energy, and I think that the gaffer got the playing him, just behind forwards. I think it was brilliant. I think it was ingenious from the gaffer. And his energy was incredible. He was like your proverbial Duracell bunny. He just kept running. And I think he definitely deserves a place in the team.
Stanley, you were commenting there. We couldn't quite hear what you were saying.
Oh, I just can't believe he's being ageist. I can't believe it. I would have loved to add Bobby. I'm a huge fan. I used to watch. I'd say when they used to have the under-18s and under-23s games at Ashton Gate, I used to go regularly because it was a pound or £3 or whatever. And I used to watch Bob Reid all the time. And even when he wasn't in the team, and even when he was out on loan at Plymouth, he was probably my favourite player because I'd watched him so many times, in front of no fans, just trying to work hard and trying to hone his. And I always thought there was something there, and I was trying to convince people that he was going to be great. I must admit, I didn't think he was a striker, but to see him sort of just come alive, a specimen of a man, basically, just running constantly. I don't know what he was having for breakfast in pre-season. You heard sort of rumours, didn't you? He was scoring goals in pre-season against Portuguese teams, always scored a hat-trick. Is it real? Is he going to be able to do it? Is he a makeshift striker? And then he comes back and he's awesome, absolutely awesome. And I just think of games where he's playing alone up top. He's playing alone up front against Man City, against Man United, and he's holding the ball up and he's interlinking and he's chasing down keepers. And yeah, again, a little bit like Webster. Sort of, there was that season and he disappears. It seems to be happening more often than not nowadays.
Do you think it makes a difference that Bobby was born in Bristol and was, part of that academy setup? Do you like players more when they're from Bristol, or is that just, just how it is?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm obsessed. I've been accused of having an agenda in the past when I complain about the lack of local guys in the team. I mean, when I grew up with the era of Danny Wilson, and I think there was probably about 2/3 or half of that team were from Bristol or through the academy, and the ones that weren't, like Scott Murray, felt like honorary Bristolians, because they'd been there so long and they were part of the community. Fine, the drinking culture is a bit different now, as well, you'd hope so anyway. But you sort of fall in love with these players because they're local and they've got the same accent as you, and you hear they went to the same school, and you hear they shop in the same Audi or whatever. And I think that's really important, especially in the era of modern football. If you don't have local players in the team, it's sometimes very hard for fans to feel an affiliation to their club, and I think having local lads in the team can really get the fans on side.
And Jerry, when he converted from a midfielder into a striker, what were your sort of views on that when it was first muted?
That's good. I mean, to be honest with you, I don't think, I'm not sure I would have done it, to be honest. I think it was very brave from the gaffer, to be honest. But these players are watched by the coaches, the management, day in, day out on the training ground. So you have to trust the management's judgment. And if the gaffer thought he was good enough to do what he did, which he obviously was, then you have to go with it. As a fan, I take on board what Stanley's saying. I do think sometimes that the Bristolian players get away with things that players that aren't Bristolian certainly wouldn't, within the fan base. Personally, just because someone is local, they shouldn't climb the pecking order for selection. If you've got three players that play in the same position, it's not the gaffer doesn't have the same rules that Stanley and Masapa are having now. You have to pick two academy players, although there are rules and regulations on that. But I totally agree that I think the majority of the fan base look through rose-coloured glasses when it comes to Bristolian players. I think that's true. And again, it is really good for you. Look at all clubs throughout the country, and I think all the fans love their local players. Look at Liverpool, God forbid, Steven Gerrard. Players like him and Carragher are always going to be favourites with a pop because they're Scousers, and I think every club does it. So I don't think we're any different. I don't think you should. I think you've got to be realistic sometimes. We've gone back to what you're saying about the fan base boo Joe Bryan. On the basis of what Stanley's saying, of course they won't, because he's Bristolian.
Yeah, good point. But joining Cardiff, oh gosh, it's Cardiff though. You're smiling, Stan.
Yeah.
Why are you smiling?
Yeah.
Oh, it's just funny. It's not the best, is it? And then they get him to do the Ayatollah as well on the bloody thing. I don't know. I feel really strong about this. I could probably have another podcast just talking about local players. Really, I think that I think we should have preference towards local players, because then what's the point in having an academy? If we're showing no preference, why don't we do what Brentford are doing? Just get rid of an academy and then just get in other people's young players. I think the people like Reed, Bryan. I mean, we've done 8 players already. Carey, Reed, Bryan are all in there. And they're academy players. There's just 3 players out of 8 that we all see as legends. And I think, if they're local lads, it can only elevate their sort of status. And we talk about Webster going as one good season goes, Reed having one good season goes. I think, players are here and gone so quickly that you sort of bring for local, really, to sort of help you get an affiliation. But yeah, going to Cardiff, it's not the best, is it? You'd rather he went somewhere else, but yeah, there you go.
Let's move on. Bobby Reed, 158 appearances for the club before departing. Let's leave it at that. Right, Jerry, you're up again.
Right, okay. I am going. This is very good. I mean, this is quite clever. This is quite strategic at the moment. I am going to pick a midfield player who would undoubtedly be my current City favourite player, because I think this player fit is just what you want. He sits in front of the back 4. He's a leader on the pitch, and I'm going to pick Corey Smith as my 100% my player from the current squad that I would put in my 11. I think the guy is brilliant. I think he reads the game so well. He's an intelligent footballer. I think he's a perfect person to be captain on the pitch. I think he's a great ambassador as well. I think he's going to go down when he finishes playing. And I know his contract is up at the end of the season, I think he's brilliant, Corey Smith. I think a fit Corey Smith is just almost too good for us, to be honest.
Thoughts, Stanley?
He wouldn't have been in my team, Jerry.
Ooh.
All about opinions, pal.
He wouldn't have been in my team, to be honest. Although, yeah, no, he wouldn't have been in my team. I think he is very, very good. But I think with the amount of midfielders Bristol City have had, I think we've got players who can do more. I feel like, Jerry accused me of it earlier. Maybe there's a bit of sentiment creeping into Jerry's game right now.
Ooh, shots fired! Shots fired! Of course, Bobby and Corey, obviously good mates, which is a boost for your team, Jerry.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't imagine. I don't know the players very well, Downsy, like you do, but I can't imagine Corey isn't good mates with anyone. To be honest, I think he's just. I can't. You might know different, but I can't believe that Corey is. I would imagine the players all love Corey. That's what comes across as a supporter watching it on the pitch. We're a much better side with Corey Smith in it than we are without him at the moment. The current squad, I think, 100%. I don't do sentiment, Stanley, by the way.
Corey Smith, definitely one of the nicest guys in football. Absolute hero. Very good. Okay, let's move on then. Let's pick up the speed a bit. Stanley, let's go.
Right. Okay. So first pick, absolute legend, Albert Adoma.
Oh yeah, tell us more about Albert and why you've chosen him.
I mean, great post-match interviews for the start. If anyone wants to have a little laugh, they can search that on YouTube. I just remember how awful that team was that he was in. Just how dire it was, the amount of players in that team that just weren't really good enough for the division, and how it was basically the Albert Adoma show every Saturday. It was, but we should have renamed it to Albert Adoma FC, etc., etc. He was just so good. He'd get the ball on the halfway line and he'd go, all right. He'd look around at the teammates and go, all right, I better run all the way into their final third then, and just go off. And the Dolman would sort of go, yeah, here he is again, hooray, like a circus animal, like it's his parlour trick. You get some dogs that can fetch or whatever, some seals that can balance a ball. And then you've got Albert Adoma. My parlour trick is to run past 6 players and, chip the keeper or whatever. So, yeah, I think wingers will be key. I don't know if we discussed formation, but I'm playing 2 wingers and 1 striker. And I think with having Scott Murray and Albert Adoma on either wing, I think whoever my striker is, they'll be licking their lips.
Very good. A Guardian international, of course, 136 appearances for City, 17 goals, 29 assists, a fan favourite. Albert Adoma earns his place, Stanley, in your 11. And let's go for another one in this quick-fire round.
Okay, so going centre midfield now. I mean, you talk about Tinian with his left foot. I mean, guy next to him who could do absolutely anything. That's Marvin Elliott.
Ooh.
Okay. Oh, that stirred Jerry. Joined the club in 2007 from Millwall. Loads of success in the professional game before those sort of ventures. 242 appearances for City, 25 goals. And in your team, why, please?
Because he can do it all. He can do it absolutely all. I mean, he scores goals. I think he hit 8 in a season, 5 in another season. He can win headers. He can go into a makeshift back 4, left foot, right foot, goals from outside the box. Yeah, I mean, it's such a shame. You think about, how much injuries can affect a player. It's such that he's by injuries, because I think he would have, if he had never got injured, if some buts and all that, I think he could arguably be discussed amongst the greatest ever Bristol City centre mids. That's how good I thought he was.
Jerry?
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree at all, to be honest. I love Marvin Elliott. I think he's a great dynamo. Absolutely, I endorse everything that Stanley's just said. I think he was underrated. I think without injuries, he would undoubtedly have been one of the best midfield players I've seen in my time watching City as well, to be fair. I think we're going to agree on this one.
Yeah, first season
I think Marvin Elliott's brilliant.
He was named the PFA in the Team of the Year alongside teammate Bradley Orr, and also won Bristol City's Young Player of the Year award in his first year at the club as well. Great agreement there. Love it. So Marvin Elliott makes it into Stanley's 11. Jerry, we're back to you for a couple of picks.
Okay, right. I am going to go for a. I'm a little bit biased on this guy because I'm gonna go for another striker. I am going to pick Tony Thorpe. I had the pleasure of meeting Tony Thorpe when he signed for City, the first season he signed for us. I'm very biased here, Stanley, I have to say. I met Tony Thorpe because when we played a pre-season friendly at Eggestry at Hereford, and I was working in Gloucester at the time, so I drove up after work to watch the City play in a pre-season friendly at Hereford just after we signed. I sat on the wall at Eggestry with my City shirt on, no other City fans around, and this guy just came up, started talking to me, and it was Tony Thorpe, and I just thought, what a great guy. And we to have again, you have to have proven goal scorers in any side. You can put in, Stan is laughing, you can put in any player into any team, but you're no good at all without a proven goal scorer. And one thing Tony Thorpe would do was he would score goals at any level, and those sort of players are rare. And to be fair, over the last 20 years, we have had very few strikers of the quality of Tony Thorpe to actually pick from, if I'm honest. So that's why I'm going for Tony Thorpe, because he was a goal scorer, would always score goals. He could be crap for the whole game, but he could still score you 2 goals. His work rate wasn't brilliant. I can see that, but you play players like Tony Thorpe at his peak because he will score goals for you.
I've just had a quick look. I think it was something like, so he played 128 games, and I think it was 51 or 52 goals that he scored, something like that. I mean, that's quite the number, Stanley.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's not bad, I'll admit. It sounded a little bit like sentiment for a second there, but I must have misheard. I grew up with that. I grew up with that era of team, and I echo what you're saying. A very good goal scorer, fox in the box, really, and not a bad record that.
Very good. Okay, so let's move on to your second pick then, Jerry.
Okay, so I am going to pick Mickey Bell because I can then put Joe Bryan further forward.
Okay.
Again, Mickey Bell to me was just brilliant. I love Mickey Bell. What a left foot that guy had. He was just Mr. Reliable, Mickey Bell. I don't think I can. When you look back on players that have played for your clubs, you can always remember players having crap spells, not having particularly good games. I think he was so consistent, Mickey Bell. I think of all the left backs we've had, Martin Scott probably as well would fit for me personally into that position in the time I've been a City fan, but I think Mickey Bell's up there with the best left backs I've seen play for City.
Promotion winner, lifted the LDV Vans Trophy in 2003. A Geordie, again, won the PFA Team of the Year, voted into that 4 times during his time in BS3. So a popular chap.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
Oh, sorry. A great player, a really good left back, and we talk about Tinian being good on set pieces. Mickey Bell, I remember him putting a free kick in the top corner and then putting it in the other corner after the referee asked him, and things like that.
Very good. Left in 2005 and went to Port Vale and Cheltenham down for a little while. Mickey Bell then makes it into Jerry's starting 11, and in the ABBA format, which I'll be honest, I'm struggling to keep up with. I think it is now Stanley's turn.
Yeah, just think of the Swedish pop group. Right, so it's interesting. I'll tell you what, seeing these picks. But I was toying with Bell, but I think now you're having him, I'll probably leave it. I'm gonna go with. Oh, this is tough, isn't it? It was all so easy. I had it all so planned out. I thought I was a genius. I'll go with. Oh, you know what? I don't know. I don't know is the answer. I'm going to go with. You know what? I'll tell you. I'll get my lone player out of the way. So I get my lone player now. Tammy Abraham wasn't in my starting lineup. He wasn't in my starting 11 when I saw the rule lone player. one person immediately sprang to mind, and that person is Stephen Coulker.
Okay, so on loan at City then from Spurs in 2010-11, featured 30 times. This isn't off the top of my head, obviously I'm reading it. But tell us why Stephen's in your 11.
I mean, it was a joke, to be honest. It was an absolute joke how easy it was for him in that season, to be honest. I mean, he was on loan at Yeovil the season before, and people were saying, oh, he's meant to be quite good. But he was very young. I think he just turned 19 or certainly an old 18-year-old when he joined. And it was just effortless. It was just effortless. It was like he was playing in the park. It's like he was wearing slippers every game. He was faster than the strikers. He was stronger than the strikers. He'd score important goals. I remember at Reading away, he must have ran at sort of 50 yards with the ball, played a 1-2, and then chipped the keeper from 30 yards. I think it hit the bar and Johnstead put it in or something like that. But he was just amazing, and he single-handedly kept us up. You talk about Tammy Abraham scoring all those goals, and that probably kept us up that season. But for a centre-back at that age to be the reason why a team stays up in the Championship, I think was amazing. And obviously, we know how his career's gone now, and he's had his problems that he's talked about openly. But I remember vividly everyone in my block, everyone in my row and around me, everyone turning to each other multiple times during that season and saying, he's going to play for England. I wouldn't be surprised if he captained England. That's how good he was.
Memories of Stephen then, Jerry?
Oh, well, one memory, 100%. The first memory springs to mind is him causing pandemonium in the away end at Loftus Road when he scored a 93rd minute equaliser on the January bank holiday Monday over the New Year for a 2-2 draw. That would be my first memory of Stephen Coulker. But I just endorse what Stanley said, to be honest with you. He was way too good for his age, to be honest. I mean, you look back over the years, a player that young to be that good, he's definitely didn't fulfill his potential. He should have gone on to much, much better. I'm not quite sure why he didn't. I think he had a few issues, didn't he? I think he had a few. I think he's done quite a bit of work for mine charities and that sort of thing. If I'm not right, I don't know whether that's right, Stanley, but I think he might have had issues like that, which may have held him back. But for his age, he was outstanding. I think he's a really, really good player. And he is actually on my list of 3 loan players that if I'd have had to pick loan players, he would undoubtedly have got into my team. I think he was very underrated by Spurs, to be honest. It's surprising, he obviously didn't make it there. He could have gone on to bigger and better things. I don't think he fulfilled his potential at all. But I agree totally what you say, that looking back over the last 20 years, that players that saved us from relegation, Coulker and Tammy would definitely be top 2. Undoubtedly, any relegation season we've had, Tammy and Stephen Coulker would definitely be one that saved us from relegation.
Good stuff. So Stephen goes into Stanley's 11, and Stanley, you're up again.
It's getting tough now. It's weird because I've got a few. Well, I'll briefly show you my notes. Go on. So there's a few teams. I've got teams. Why I'm picking them, and then I've got another page. I've got 2 pages. Look, I've got my team. Oh, I shouldn't show them that one. Oh, don't cover that. And then I've also got. Oh, there you go. And then I've also got Jerry's team there. So we've got all sorts of things going through my head. So I'm gonna pick. Not that person. I'm gonna pick. Okay, I think this might ruffle a few feathers. I think if we're talking about underrated, person is right up there. Someone that I really, really liked, a local boy, so he ticks that box. So I've now got 2. I'm not sure if everyone will agree, and this, will go against me here, but I'm going to pick Cole Skuse to go in my midfield.
Okay, walk us through it. Tell us why.
I think first of all, I do think he was criminally underrated. I think again, he was fast. He was combative. He would win tackles. He could both feet. He could pass the ball and switch it. He was a local lad, which of course, helps me love him even more. And I think he played in some very good Bristol City teams at a very young age as well. Really, it's a shame. I think that Bristol City got progressively worse whilst he was getting progressively better. Really, I think if the team had been developing at the same rate he had, then people would have loved him even more. And I know, he went to Ipswich and they weren't too sure about him. But I just think with some of the attacking players I've got in my team, maybe you need sort of a calm, relaxed head on the ball, like Cole Skuse.
Well, this is obviously, what happens to people from Yates. They go on to great things. The J.K. Rowling, Cole Skuse. You must have some great memories. He would have played with a gaffer, right, Jerry?
Yeah, he would. I mean, two things that spring to mind about Cold Skuse for me. One, he used to see, I live in North Bristol as well. He used to use the same car wash. So I used to bump into him on a Sunday morning at the car wash and have a chat about the football. And he was a nice guy and he always had time for the supporters. And of course, the colour of his hair is really trendy, like grey, to be honest. So that's two things I've got in common with him. Cold Skuse is what I would deem a squad player, a great squad player. I haven't even. I've got literally 35 names written down for all positions. He's not on my list at all. That doesn't mean I don't like him, don't rate him, not at all. He was just a solid player. I think he was very Marmite. I think he was he would divide the fan base more than your Bobby Reeds and your Joe Bryans. If you spoke to the City fan base about Bristolian local lads, I don't think you'd have many. I think most people would be whistling the same tune when it comes to Joe Bryan and Bobby Reed. I think you'd have a hell of a debate on Cole Skuse, to be honest.
Thankfully, that's not a debate that we have to have now. Cole joined Ipswich Town on a free in 2013 and has played for them ever since. Right, Jerry, back to you for a couple, please.
Well, talking about controversial, I think this choice for my right back would be controversial because I would go for my right back as Luke Ayling. To be honest, I think the guy was excellent for us, and I think he's gone on. Nobody likes Leeds, apart from even some Leeds fans don't like Leeds. But he's gone on to play for a team that our fan base doesn't like. But that doesn't make him a rubbish player. It doesn't make him disloyal. I think Luke Ayling's a very, very good player. And I think if Leeds, or whatever happens with this season, I think if Leeds get into the Premiership, I think Luke Ayling will be fine, to be honest. I think he's a very underrated player. I just think the team he played in had so many iconic players. The promotion team in 2015, you had your Aidan Flint and your Marlon Pax and you had, like, everybody loved Wilbraham up front. I just think in a different team, Luke Ayling would have been our star player. And fullbacks aren't star players for any team, are they? You ask any child, any supporter, no one's going to pick a fullback as their favourite player, I don't think. But I think Luke Ayling was totally underrated. I think he's an absolute quality player, and I think he's well worth. I struggle to think of a better right back in the last 20 years.
Controversial for you, Stanley?
No, to be honest, I didn't consider Luke Ayling, really. I mean, people might have worked out if they're going from a team that I've got a sort of a young, dashing Lewis Carey as a right back in order to fit him in. I'm surprised Bradley Orr. I would have had Bradley Orr over Ayling, but neither have got into my team. But yeah, a very good player, and a shame he had to leave for whatever reason.
95 appearances for Luke Ayling, and as we've mentioned, moved to Leeds in August 2016. Makes it into Jerry's team. Jerry, you're up again.
So we've got 3 players left, according to me. I noticed that neither of us have picked a goalkeeper. I found the goalkeeper position very difficult, actually. I'm quite happy for Stanley to go first on the goalkeeper because my second goalkeeper I was quite happy with as my first choice goalkeeper, so I'll leave that position. The other tough ones, I mean, having the fact he's pinched all the centre halves I wanted, I'm going to have another centre half. It worries me because my other 2 centre halves I've got written down are both quite slow. So putting them alongside Flint is going to be a bit of a gamble. But if you had to say to me what one of your favourite City players over the last 30 years, and this player qualifies for this team because he left the club in June 2000. So I'm going to put alongside Aidan Flint, Sean Taylor. I just think Sean Taylor, he would be in my all-time City favourite team, let alone my City team of the last 20 years. I think Sean Taylor was a brilliant, brilliant centre-half. I just love the guy. He was everything I like about a footballer. I'm not sure in the modern game with the modern referees and this, that and the other that his disciplinary record was quite good, but I don't think. I mean, he got everything when he went for the ball. You just have Linton Taylor at the back. I mean, it's slow, but you wouldn't concede a goal in the air. I'd love Sean Taylor, and on the basis I can't have Adam Webster and Lewis Carey, I had written down the other two players I'd written down for that position were Jamie McComb and Sean Taylor. And as much as I liked Jamie McComb, Sean Taylor was a much, much better player. So I am going to go for the fact that he played 6 months. He was in the team for 6 months since 2000. I'm putting Sean Taylor down as my other centre half.
Thoughts on Sean Taylor, Stanley?
I'd probably wear a gum shield if I was up against Sean Taylor and Nathan Flint. That's for sure. I met him actually. For One Stream in Bristol, the podcast. I interviewed Gary Johnson down in Torquay, and I didn't realise Sean Taylor had a job there as head of academy. And I met him, and he was a very nice guy, and he's still quite scary. I'll put it that way.
105 appearances and 7 goals for Bristol City between 96 and 2000. Sean Taylor makes it into Jerry's team, and I think we pass the baton now over for pick number 9 for Stanley. Couple from you now.
Right. Well, I mean, so the last few positions I've got striker. I don't think Jerry's going to pick a 4th striker. I don't think he's that gung ho. A left back. Who he's already got one. So really, it makes sense to pick a keeper. But I don't know who I want to be number 1 here. I mean, but the 2 keepers are. I'm going to presume that Jerry's also got Dan Bentley and Basso as the 2. Are you nodding there? Yeah, there you go. Big thumbs up. So I don't know. Now, I don't know. That's the answer. I'm going to go. I'm going to go Basso because I'll tell you what. When he was the keeper, I was probably age 10 to 15 when Basso was the keeper. If I think I've got the seasons right in my head, and I that was the position I played. I played in goal, and I used to think he was just amazing. Again, I remember when I was chatting to Gary Johnson for the podcast, I asked him about Basso, and he said he brought him into training, and the words he used was, and he just caught everything. I think sometimes there's almost bemusement by Bristol City fans at the amount of shots that Basso would save, and I remember. Yeah, I just remember watching him as a kid and being amazed that he would just save everything. Kicking's a little bit iffy, and he's not the biggest keeper, but in terms of shot stopping, one of the best keepers I've ever seen for sure.
One of the tunnel stewards, Alan, who makes the best cup of tea and the best sandwiches, I think, in the English Football League, came up to me at my very early days doing the announcing. It was a tough odd start, let me tell you. And he kept saying this thing that we were getting towards the end of the games. He go, always believe. And Alan was, a hero of mine to start with because he sort of held my hand through it. And I said, so it's a great saying you've got there, Alan. He said, oh, it's not mine, it's Basso's. He was very famous for that saying, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. He's an absolute legend, and it's quite strange the way he sort of left the club. Really, he was very spiritual, very religious person. I think there was a point where he was convinced that there was another club in for him, and didn't believe Gary Johnson. I remember I met him at a players' signing event, Basso, sort of getting him to sign my shirts and stuff. And I remember asking him. He just saved a penalty against Watford, and I asked him, "How did you know where the striker was going to put it?" And he said, "God told me." And I dived to my left. And I said, "Oh, cool. Yeah, I look in their eyes, but no, well done."
And great memories of Basso, obviously, for you, Jerry.
Yeah. I like to say I wish I was 15 when Basso was playing, to be honest, Stanley. But yeah, no, I just think Basso. I'll be honest with you. I think Basso and Bentley. There's very little to choose between the 2 of them, to be honest. Basso again was. He's going to go down as another fan's favourite goalkeeper. If you ask most supporters of City, their favourite goalkeeper of the last 30 years, I think Basso would come out. I don't think you could just say for the last 20. I think you could go back a bit further. I mean, I don't know what it was about him, to be honest, because he wasn't, like you say, he wasn't the tallest. In some ways, he shouldn't have been as good as he was. Do you know what I mean? And I don't know why he was, to be honest. He's one of these players that you look back fondly on him, but he was actually good. You know what I mean? I don't know why he didn't really look like he should be a really good goalkeeper. I can't put the finger on why he was, to be honest. It's a shame he left, because he was, again, he was a cult hero, wasn't he? In fact, my mate's got a dog called Basso, to be honest.
What do you think makes people become these club cult heroes like Basso and like Scotty? What do you have to do to qualify as a club legend, in your opinion, Jerry?
I think I think some players have got you. You get in. It's like they're very endearing to the fan base. Do you know what I mean? I think the fact that Adriano Basso was foreign as well actually helped, because I think fans do like to it's almost like the opposite of what Stanley's saying about the local players. I think there's quite an affiliation. I think after the local Bristolian players, I think favourite foreign players would be higher up supporters list than other UK based players. So I just think, looking back over the time, you look at foreign players. I mean, I think you forget Marvin Elliott was Jamaican. He played for Jamaica, but I don't look upon Marvin Elliott as a foreign player. And I just think all fans like to have a favourite foreign player. And I think any player that's got a song that the fans like as well, that helps to endear. People get on the bandwagon, don't they? They get on, we won't mention the Casey Palmer song, but fans like a song that's synonymous with a player. And I think that unites a fan base, a unique song. And I think that a song that fans like helps a player to be endeared to the fan base, even if they're not potentially the best. I think that helps. But I have no idea why Adriano Basso was as good as he was. I don't know is the answer to that. Like I say, his kicking was a bit dodgy. He wasn't at all. So why was he so good?
Maybe only the Lord knows. Now, Stanley, you're up again.
Yeah, it wasn't. I like the idea that no one knows why. It's a bit like when you hear, bumblebees aren't meant to fly because of the size of their wings, but they just do. It's a bit like that with Basso, isn't it? He's not tall enough to be a golfer, but he just is. So there you go. Right, so I've got 2 picks left. I mean, he's got a left back. So I mean, I know that he's not going to pick either of my players really. So I'll go with my striker. I'll go with my striker now. Abraham was the reserve in case Jerry picked this guy, but he didn't. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people on the podcast are screaming now, saying, "Is he going to pick Antoine Semenyo?" No, but maybe in 10 years he'll be in this team. I'm going to pick Nicky Maynard.
Okay, tell us about why.
Just, I mean, I think we needed a striker for a while. I mean, if we remember when we went up under Gary Johnson, we didn't have one. We didn't have a striker in the team. And then when we got to the playoff final, our top scorer was Byfield with, I think, 8 or 9. And we had a goal difference of -1 or 0-1 or whatever it was, And I think the fans and the team and everyone was just desperate for a striker to join. And Nicky Maynard was that, but for whatever reason, we didn't really kick on with him in the team. But I thought he was just amazing. I mean, you talk about iconic goals. You could probably make a case for Nicky Maynard away to QPR as the greatest Bristol City goal ever. I think you could probably argue that. And he would just get the ball and he would just shoot out of nowhere. Like he'd click his finger and the ball would have left his foot. Such a snapshot. And he could curl it into the top corner. He could chip keepers. He could blast it. I remember goals at home to Newcastle where the ball was just switched out to him, and just cutting inside and just bending it in off the post, and suddenly it was in. You blink and you miss some of these goals, and an amazing record, and a shame how it ended up. I mean, I've got a few Bristolians in my team. I think Nicky Maynard doesn't quite count through his son, but a great player and an amazing record.
131 appearances, 46 goals. Nicky makes it into Stanley's team. Now, he's got 1 pick left, but in the ABBA format, it's Jerry's final 2 coming up.
Okie doke. Well, obviously, he knows I'm going to pick for my goalkeeper, so I won't pick him now. I've got a lot of midfield players. Basically, I've got Reed and Bryan that can play wide. I've got Corey that will sit in front of the defence. So I've got to have a midfield player that will pick the ball up and go forward, which is tough because I would have picked Marvin Elliott, if I'm honest. I've got literally loads of midfield players written down. I've got like Marlon Pack written down, but you can't really play Marlon Pack in my team. I don't think, not with Corey. I think they're too defensive. So I've got literally loads of midfield players, so I need someone that's going to go forward. So it's tough. It's not as easy as I thought, but I'm going to pick Josh Brownhill in that case, based purely on the fact that I need a midfield player that can go forward with the ball and support Thorpe and Abraham. So what you said about Nicky Maynard, I think Maynard and Thorpe, I don't think there's a lot between them. I think they're very similar players, to be honest. Brownhill, I think I'd definitely go for Brownhill as a attacking midfield player. I have to say, I think Josh Brownhill will go on to great things. I really do. I think he's done the right thing to go to a Premier League club. He's still quite young. I think he will be a very good player for the Premiership, and I think he's what my team needs, as opposed to players over the last 20 years I would have picked ahead of him. I just think to fit into my team, I'd have to pick Josh Brownhill.
Were you surprised, Jerry, when he was given the captain's armband? Because he was quite young, wasn't he?
Yeah, I was. I was pleasantly surprised as well. So I think he did a good job. Yeah, I was, to be honest. Again, it goes back to what I said earlier, doesn't it? The gaffer and the players know. I mean, Corey Smith for me is a natural captain. I'm not convinced Brownhill is, but I think he might be. But again, it goes back to the gaffer knowing the individual players. You've got to have a captain that the other players respect and look up to. I remember speaking to Gary, is Josh's dad, at several away games. And what surprised me is, I don't think came across on the field, was I remember Gary coming after an away game that we lost. In fact, it was Charlton. And Gary said that he hopes he gets home before Josh, because he said Josh was the worst, miserablest loser that you can imagine. He said Josh will be. We lost 3-2 at Charlton. I have a game we should have won. And Gary was saying Josh really, really cares. He's got a massive passion for our football club, and he will be in such a bad mood when he gets home after. Obviously Gary would have got home before, and that actually surprised me, to be honest. That doesn't come as a fan. That does not come across on the pitch, to be honest, and that is probably why the gaffer, obviously knowing him better than I would, picked him, because he does care, and you want a captain that's a bad loser, don't you? You don't, in any team, you need a captain that's a bad loser, because that's the only way it can portray to the other players what it means to play for the club. And I was pleasantly surprised, and that explained to me why the gaffer picked him.
And a very close and unique relationship as well with Callum O'Dowda, with Josh. Stanley, do you think those kind of friendships and closeness off the pitch, help when you're on it?
Yeah, of course. I think, I'm not sure how keen I am on using war analogy to describe football, but when you're in the trenches and you look to the right or left of you, you want to see someone that you know. And I think the best teams are close teams. And if your best mates or your roommates are someone you play alongside, you need to know how they tick, what their ins and outs, how to pick them up, how to calm them down. I think having sort of friendships like, I don't know, Brownhill and O'Dowda, I'm sure you could pick many others, can only help, really. And that's why there's such I'm sure, importance about pre-season trips. That's why you see these sort of wacky team bonding exercises, and the trust falls or whatever, or some managers let the players get pissed up on the final day and all that sort of stuff. Because if you do that, the players know each other, and the more they know about each other, the better they'll presumably play.
We'll just apologise for the language that we may or may not have to bleep out on this family podcast from Stanley there. Apologies for that. Very good. Let's go. Let's go back to the final pick from Jerry, and then Stan's final pick. And Stanley, your final pick has to, of course, be a current player to qualify for the rules. But Jerry first.
Yeah, well, I've only got my goalkeeper left, and I don't think it was the most difficult. In fact, it's the easiest decision to choose two goalkeepers from 2000. So I would definitely go with Dan Bentley. If I can't have Adriano Basso, then I put in Dan Bentley. I think the guy's very, very good goalkeeper. He's still very young. I think he'd go on to great things, hopefully with us. But I think he's got a lot. He's a lot taller, obviously, as well. I think he's not lacking in self-confidence, which I think goalkeepers need. I think he believes in his own ability, which I think is what you need in a goalkeeper. I don't think you can pick up on a couple of goals we've conceded this season that potentially maybe he should have saved. But I think whilst it upsets him that he's let the goals in, I don't think it affects his confidence. And I think you need a goalkeeper that oozes confidence to spread throughout the team. And if I couldn't have Basso, it's a no-brainer. I mean, I can't even think of another goalkeeper that I'd even consider apart from Basso and Bentley. I mean, there was the guy that played, was it one game? Was he called Stefan, whatever it was? I mean, you just imagine someone like him and you think, yeah, God help us. Which pub did they pull him out of before the game? Do you know what I mean? Yeah, no, I think it's an easy choice. Dan Bentley, I think he's a great player.
And apologise to any of the Marinovic family that might be tuning in to this podcast on behalf of the club. Finally, it's over to the lovely Stanley, who I believe is involved in another podcast, although I can't remember the name of it. Stanley, tell us a little bit about your final choice, please.
Yeah, I'm lovely. The podcast isn't that lovely, to be honest. Don't bother listening, people. Well, yeah, I mean, Marinovic is going. I'm going to play Marinovic at left back. No, actually, no. I've changed my mind last minute. I'm going to go for. So, I mean, I would have had Joe Bryan. I think Joe Bryan was the clear choice for me, and I'm a bit insulted that Jerry's not playing Bryan there. He's sort of taken my left back, and they're not even used him in the position that I think he should be in. So I think he's sort of, really rubbed it in there. So I figured I was going to wait. I was going to wait for the Bentley or Basso decision or the left back decision late on. And I guess, now I've got to pick a current team. I think De Silva is the player to pick. I think someone who, I'm still not 100% sure about, but he is very young. We need to remember that. And defenders, they take a while normally to sort of mature and grow into the players they end up being. And I think he's got a lot of potential and could turn into a very, very good player, and I hope he stays here for the foreseeable future.
Oh, your thoughts on the final selection, Jerry?
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. I think Jay De Silva. I think the difference between Joe Bryan and Jay De Silva is that I think Joe Bryan definitely is a better finisher. I'm not convinced Jay De Silva's going to score many goals. I mean, he's done some amazing runs in games about this season, and then made a complete hash of the his goal attempt. But no, I don't disagree at all. I think he's got great potential. I know this is quite a weird thing to say, but I think he's a City player. Some players come to Ashton Gate, and to me, you're laughing, Stanley. Some players come to me, and they strike me as a fan as being a City player. Some just think, well, no, they're not City players. It's completely irrational, isn't it? Because you don't know them. But I just think that Jay De Silva looks like a City player. And that's a weird thing to say, but I know what I mean.
Very good. Wow, goodness me, what a team you have both picked. I have to say that we do have to just go through and pick your managers. Whilst you have a little think about who you might manage, we'll let as Jerry went first in the picking, we'll let Stanley go first in the managers. But here we go. So Basso, Carey, Corker, Webster, De Silva, Skuse, Elliott, Tinian, Murray, Maynard, and Adoma versus Jerry's 11, which is Bentley, Ayling, Flint, Taylor, Bell, Reed, Smith, Brownhill, Bryan, Abraham, and Thorpe. I mean, they're two mighty teams. How much would you love, boys, to see those two teams go at it?
Well, I'll start calling my team up, Jerry, and you start calling yours up. And I think Gravel Smythe Park. So we'll have to do zonal marking, I think, 2 meters away and all that. But I reckon it'll be a decent spectacle.
Scotty will have them all on his phone, so we can. There's no problem.
Yeah.
And let's wrap all this up then with your final choice each, which is who is going to manage your team then, please, Stanley?
Well, it's tough. I mean, I've got here a few. Koppel was the first one I thought of, but then I thought, no, I'll move on. So I'm going to go with, I don't know why Jerry's laugh. I thought that was a great choice, but I'm going to go with, I haven't even written this down. I'm going to go with Gary Johnson Senior. Sorry, Lee, but I'm going with Gary Senior.
And is there emotion involved in that decision? Talk us through why it's Gary.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, emotion. I mean, he could get anyone up for anything, couldn't he? I just feel yeah. Well, when he took over, I was 10 again. Joe can be ageist a bit later, but when he took over, I was 10, and when he left, I was 15. And I think that those are quite formative years. I think for any football fan, that's when you sort of really start to get the passion. You start to go to a few away games and really start to appreciate and love your football club a lot more, and to sort of have a character like Gary Johnson in charge for those 5 years, I think was nothing short of wonderful, really. And it's I still think about that Windass goal on a regular basis, to be honest, and what could have been. So yeah, there's a few good candidates, of course, but I think Gary Johnson is my choice.
Goodo. And Jerry, who is the gaffer over on your side of the fence?
Well, go back to that Windus goal. I still think of Adebola's miss at the beginning, to be honest. But actually, to me, it's easy, to be honest. There's one season that will always stay with me. I cannot believe 2015. It's just amazing. I just loved it. Every single aspect of that season, I have to pick Steve Cottrell. Just based purely on sentiment, Stanley. But at the end of the day, that season, I will look back on for the rest of my days with nothing but pride. I can pick out game after game after game from that season that I absolutely loved. Even like, the 2 games against Crawley that Luke Hayden scored the winner in, getting Luke Hayden into it. Little games like Leyton Orient away when we were losing and we ended up winning. And yeah, I mean, Cottrell, for all his faults, and undoubtedly there were loads, to give me that season as a City fan of over 2,000 games, to have a season where we won the league, we had a day out at Wembley, just copious amounts of memories. That Bradford game when we got promoted, so this is a bit controversial, but personally, going to all the away games, I'm glad we got promoted at an away game, because at home games, me and my mates are all spread out all over the stadium, whereas at an away game, you can all sit together. And to have that game in my brain, we haven't won at Bradford in the league since the Titanic sunk, since 1912, and to go there and win 6-0. We won there in the League Cup quarter final when Alan Walsh, when we scored early on. But to have that season, I have to put Cottrell in, I'm afraid. Sorry, Johnson family. Love you, really.
Fantastic. Well, do you know what? I've really enjoyed this. Some fantastic players, some fantastic memories, a little bit contentious in places, but I'd like to thank both Jerry and Stanley for your time today and for your memories. And thank you very much for taking part.
Cheers, Stanley. Keep safe, mate.
Yeah, thanks for having us. And also, just quickly, I also replaced Jerry as Bristol City Supporter of the Year. So if you're not sure who to vote for, out with the old, in with the new. Thank you very much.
And Mike Adams as well.
Very good. Thank you,
care,
Jerry.
Downsy.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, both. Thank you very much for watching and for listening to this socially distanced podcast, of course, in these slightly odd times. As ever, if you're out and about, please only go out for food. Please only go out for health reasons, or if you are one of our amazing key workers. And if you are a key worker, thank you very much for your continued support in keeping us all safe. If you do have to go out, please make sure you follow those social distancing rules. But quite frankly, stay in, listen and watch to all our podcasts. There'll be another one at the same time next week. But from all of us here on Bristol City's The Robin's Nest podcast, we'll see you next time.